Based off brand new quotes from NBA analysts, it seems like other NBA executives in the association have a bunch of love lost for this Miami Heat organization. I'm here to break down the full quote as well as an article suggesting the top 3 trade candidates we could see being brought to this Miami Heat team by the halfway point of this NBA season. I'm here to break down all the moving parts right now on this episode of Heat Digest. So let's not waste any time and break down how Miami isn't loved. Now, I laughed hysterically when I read this quote from Bill Simmons in the Bill Simmons podcast. Now, the reason being is because he's discussing the relationship and the feelings from Joe Cronin towards this Miami Heat organization. Now, before we get in the quote, you have to understand the backstory. Joe Cronin is the executive of the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the Portland Trail Blazers had Damian Lillard on their team for a long period of time. Obviously, he was drafted out of Weber State to Portland. He played there for a handful of years and realized, hey, I'm not going to be able to compete for NBA championships anymore as the West is getting significantly better and Portland is crashing. There's no other way around it. So, obviously, we had the Damian Lillard saga. As we all know, being Miami Heat fans and supporters, we were very, very, very much involved in that saga as we wanted to see Damian Lillard down in South Beach playing in a Miami Heat uniform, leading the way at the point guard position. Obviously, that didn't happen. He ended up in Milwaukee playing with the Bucks organization and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But now we have quotes from Bill Simmons that suggest Joe Cronin is not the happiest individual, if you will, when it comes to dealing with this Miami Heat organization. And hey, who can blame him? It's Miami. But again, we're going to break down this quote. Shout out to NBA Central for posting this quote, again, citing Bill Simmons on the Damian Lillard trade involving Joe Cronin and the Portland Trail Blazers, going on to say, and I quote, Miami and their whole little annoying media machine that they have fucked up the Portland situation to the point that Joe Cronin and the Portland people were like, we're never trading with those fucking guys. And that's the end of the quote from Bill Simmons on the Damian Lillard trade. So again, because of South Beach, because of Miami and what Miami did, I guess you can, I hate phrasing it like that, but because of what Miami did, it seems like it rubbed Joe Cronin and the entire Portland Trail Blazers organization the wrong way. And because of that, they said, you know what, I don't even want to continue these trade talks. I don't even want to continue to attempt to do business with you guys. I'm cutting it there. And you guys, we're not even going to think that you guys are a possible suitor to be involved in a trade package for Damian Lillard, regardless of obviously what is coming back to Portland. So again, this is it seems like one of the main reasons the Miami Heat did not end up getting a deal done to land the star point guard in Damian Lillard. And again, it's going to be very interesting as we get into the next topic about other trade candidates to see if there's other teams involved with possible trade assets for this Miami Heat team that would also be on the same page as Joe Cronin. Hopefully not, as again, we don't want to burn all the bridges in the association because it would leave us in a very, very stale spot, to say the least, with an inability to make any transactions from team to team in this league. So now that was really it, and that was the entire quote. But now let's break down the possible trade opportunities, as apparently we have 3 possible trade opportunities going into this season. So let's get to it and break down the possible trade opportunities. The second I find the title of our article, titled 3 Realistic and 3 Unrealistic Trade Targets from the Miami Heat. Going on to say the Miami Heat have a few realistic trade targets, but there are also some unrealistic options that are fun to speculate about. Now, honestly, I'm not going to give it a lot of light, in the sense that we're not going to give the unrealistic options a lot of light because they are very, very, very long reaches of opportunity here. And you'll see why when we get to the actual names. But there's only one realistic target I really want to focus on anyway. And that's because I feel like he's the only person that would only, 1, fit in Miami, but 2, would it actually work in Miami? And it's Marcus Smart. Now, they go on to list Marcus Smart as the first available realistic option, if you will, for this Miami Heat team. And I absolutely love this idea. We've had conversations about Marcus Smart in the past. I loved when he left Boston because I felt like Boston got worse. That wasn't the case. But again, Marcus Smart is a great player. He ended up in Memphis, and he's a damn good basketball player. There's no way around it. He's a point guard, true and true. He can shoot the basketball. He can score the basketball, but he's very, very good at defending as well as facilitating and really just handling the basketball overall. Obviously, he can hit the open jump shots. He can get to the basket, and he can finish aggressively. He can make free throws. But again, when you think of Marcus Smart, it's that dog mentality that he carries himself with, that mentality of not being really scared of anybody else that breathes air. There's no other way around it. If you breathe oxygen, it's fair game. There's no way around it. And Marcus Smart, again, is one of those guys that I would love to have on this Miami Heat team because he's not scared of anybody. He accepts any and all challenges. And again, I think he would lead the way for this Miami Heat team, whether he's the 8th man off the bench, the 6th man off the bench, or the first guy in the starting lineup. I think he would be a phenomenal piece for this Miami Heat team, not only as due to the character he maintains, but because of the play style he maintains as well. And it says potential trade offer to the Grizzlies in order to obviously land Marcus Smart would require Duncan Robinson, Josh Richardson, and a 2029 first-round pick. That's a bit steep, in my opinion. Those are two very good role players, two players that get a lot done on both sides of the basketball. Obviously, Duncan is dominantly a three-point threat, not a great defender, but again, has a great bag on the offensive end, as well as being a great team player. Josh Richardson goes without any introduction. The kid can do it both on both sides of the ball without a doubt. He can defend at an elite clip, and I mean elite, not a great clip, an elite clip, as well as scoring the basketball, whether it be from 3, mid-range, or slashing to the basket. He's a damn good basketball player, plus a first-round pick. I don't know if Marcus Smart's value is still that substantial at this point in his career, as he's now 30 years old and going into the final year of his contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. It's going to be very interesting. I don't know if they will move him before this contract expires, or if they will let him get to the end of this contract, become an unrestricted free agent in 2026, 2027, and then test free agency, or if they will deal him beforehand. It's going to be very interesting. Obviously, the Grizzlies have a bunch of depth at that guard position with Ja Morant and a bunch of other young pieces. So it'll be interesting to see what the trade value is for Marcus Smart and if they actually go on to try to actually move him. Obviously, our depth chart right now at guard is very, very saturated with Rozier, Hero, Richardson, Burks, Duncan Robinson, and Pelle Larsson. It's going to be very interesting. Obviously, we have other players like Jaquez and Jimmy Butler who both can play the guard positions very, very well in the sense that they can handle the ball, they can bring the ball up the floor, and they are very good at facilitating the basketball. Not who you really think of when you think of true point guards, but again, they all have the ability to play that guard position and really dominate the ball in the sense of bringing it up the floor and initiating and facilitating the offense at a high level. So again, it would require us to make some moves because if we just added Marcus Smart to this team, I'm not even sure. There's nowhere you could put him. There are just so many different pieces everywhere on this team. Thankfully, the depth is not going to be a problem this year, which is always that is a great thing to have, because if we do have injuries or reasons that players cannot be available for certain games, we can always fall back on the depth that we have. And again, it is something that we can fall back on, and that is a great thing. But again, to quickly run through the other trade opportunities for this Miami Heat team based off this article. For realistic options, we started with Marcus Smart. We moved to Trae Young, which, again, would require a package of, hypothetically, I have to throw that in there, a hypothetical trade package of Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jovic, and a 2029 first-round pick, again, to require just Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks. We've had this conversation multiple times on this Heat Digest channel. I'm not a fan of this. Trae Young is a liability on the defensive end. Yes, he can give you one steal a game, but again, when it comes to actually one-on-one defense and getting isolated on a basketball court, getting screened and rolled, it is not going to work. Getting mismatched, getting mouse in the house, having a 5 set a screen for whoever the point guard is, having Trae Young then switch immediately onto that big, it is going to be barbecue chicken, if you will. If Shaquille O'Neal was the one making the call, it would by far and away be barbecue chicken. But we'll move on to the third and final realistic trade option in Nikola Vucevic, the center who was the center for the Orlando Magic, quickly then moved to Chicago. He's been damn good. He was one of the names that we threw out there last year for possible centers that we needed for this Miami Heat team, as we desperately needed a true center to allow Bam to get moved back to the power forward position. Obviously, we didn't make a trade last season, and we waited till the offseason, and specifically the NBA draft, where we went out and got Kel'el Ware, who seems like he's going to be our cornerstone of this NBA franchise for this Miami Heat team at the center position, which I'm very, very ecstatic for. I don't know if we're going to go out and make a move for another center center after going out and getting a true center in Kellman Ware, who's still very, very young. I don't believe it's something we will do, but again, the trade package hypothetically that it would take to go out and get Vucevic would be Duncan Robinson in a 2029 first round pick. If this was the same requirements as it was last year, I'm going to be very upset. And the reason being is because if it just takes Duncan Robinson in a 2029 first round pick, I feel like there's some negotiating room there where we could probably not give up Robinson, give up a smaller piece plus a draft pick and get Vucevic, and we could have been very well off, to say the least, at the center position with Bam Adebayo and Vucevic at the 4 and the 5. I think things would be very, very good for the Miami Heat. But now that we do have Kellman Ware, I'm a bit more hesitant to go out and get another big-name center to put on this Miami Heat team. But again, another realistic option that, especially last season, I would not have minded at all. But again, to quickly wrap up this video, the last 3 unrealistic trade targets for this Miami Heat team. Ironically, one of them is Damian Lillard. The second is Kawhi Leonard. And the third and final is Zach LaVine. The trade packages for all 3 of these players are absolutely ridiculous. We'll start with Kawhi Leonard, as it's a Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Josh Richardson, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2031 first-round pick. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely not. Kawhi Leonard has played in less than 40% of his last 3 season games. Not happening. There's no reason to trade for someone. Yes, he has a lot of upside when he's on the floor, but again, we complain about Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero not being active. It would be so much louder and so much more substantial if that body was Kawhi Leonard, as he, again, misses more games than absolutely anybody in the league. And again, he's one of the top 5 players in the world when healthy. So again, it'd be so much more substantial. For Zach LaVine, again, we've had this conversation before on this channel. I don't think he'd fit in on this Miami Heat roster, especially as put together now. Again, there's too much depth, there's too much talent on this team to then add someone like Zach LaVine to it. Again, the hypothetical trade would be Robinson, Hero, Richardson, and then again 2 first-round picks. Not exactly what the Miami Heat are looking to give up. And then obviously for Damian Lillard, the package not as big as the last 2, but again, Hero, Richardson, and a 2029 first-round pick in order to land the all-star point guard from the Milwaukee Bucks, who was previously of the Portland Trail Blazers. As we all know, Joe Cronin loves this Miami Heat organization. But again, that will be it for this episode of Heat Digest. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.